Okay. Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Gauri. I am the founder and CEO of Upskill Digital. Welcome to our webinar on how to grow your business with social media. We're running this session today for 30 minutes, and this session is a free webinar to help you hopefully grow your business and engage new customers and reach new customers. The session will allow for questions in our true engaging fashion. Please do ask questions, and we'll talk to you about how to do that in a second as well. So really excited to have you guys here today. Thank you for taking the time to join us, and we are going to crack on. Let me share my screen with you now. Fantastic. So, as I mentioned, we are running a session this morning on growing your business with social media. And it's really topical session for us to run today, primarily because social media has changed the way we engage with our friends, our families, and brands that we know and love. And because of that, it's a very saturated and complicated, even quite a complex marketing channel to really engage your customers. And this is why we wanted to have a little session to talk you through some of the ways that you can hopefully reach new customers, engage them, and set goals to get the most out of the engagement that you hope to have. As I mentioned, we love to take questions through this, so feel free if you are, as you are doing this through our Hangout on air, you can ask questions on the right-hand side, and we're going to have a little Q&A towards the end of the session, and hopefully we can get those answers as we go through. So please make the questions, as relevant and as tailored to your industry, your business, to really help you get the most out of this too. As I mentioned, we are a digital skills training agency. So we offer training across a variety of different digital disciplines, areas within digital. So everything from leadership, perhaps if you're a large or a small business, we offer training on productivity. So it could be helping your team to be more proficient in email, perhaps understanding how to use anything from Google Analytics or even general data for your business. Of course, this is one of our most popular social media strategy sessions that really helps you, understand how to engage with social to really get the best out of driving growth for your business. And we run a number of courses, and they range from 90-minute sessions to half days to full day sessions for you and your team, either face-to-face or virtually too. So please do let us know at the end if you are interested in getting a more full-blown session. But let's crack on with the session today and ensure that we can hopefully give you some really top tips and skills to help you grow your business with social media. So the agenda that we're going to run through, we'll start off with looking at the social media landscape. So specifically, where are we with social media in 2019? How is social media helping businesses grow? How is it helping business engage their customers? How are we dealing with the noise that's out there? We'll talk about setting goals. With anything you do on digital, it's really important that you know how to set your goals, and also what kind of goals will be right for the business in the stage that you are at the moment. And finally, best practice. So what are the top tips that perhaps we can offer to help you stay on top of your social media campaigns and help you engage your customers as best as possible? So the social media landscape in 2019, well, over the last however many years or so, maybe 10 years or so, we've seen social media has truly changed the way we engage with brands, companies, businesses online. It's a very saturated market. It's really an exciting way and a really simple way to be able to connect with friends and family. But from a business's perspective, just knowing how to post, knowing perhaps when to post isn't enough. You need to build campaigns, you need to set goals, you need to know, how people are engaging and how different platforms are also evolving as our social browsing behaviors change over the course of the year. So one thing that's pretty clear is we are incredibly connected to our mobile phones. You may have heard about this before, but we often call it nomophobia. I don't even have to ask, for how many of you is your phone within touching distance, right? Some of you maybe even be watching or listening to this webinar through your mobile. It's very common nowadays for us to even use our mobiles last thing before going to bed and first thing we wake up in the morning, and we are truly connected to these devices. We almost feel like we've lost a limb when we lose the devices themselves. And what's really important is that you're not alone, right? Everybody, your customers are so engaged on these devices. Over the last 10, 12 years or so, we've seen smartphones really change the way consumers engage with brands online. Offering information is very simple, but actually being saturated and trying to cut through the noise to really get your message across becomes harder and harder on these small devices. And the stats are really out there. In terms of how often we engage with our phones every day, whether it's social media or whether it's just checking the phone for any other information we're looking for, we look at the phones up to over actually 150 times a day, which is a hell of a lot. And some of these stats you yourself probably have heard before, but some of them you know and truly live. 87% of us use more than one device at a time. Perhaps we're at home or watching the TV whilst tweeting about one of our favorite shows. We can spend over 5 hours spent on social media every day on average, even in the UK, which is amazing. It's a great opportunity to utilize these platforms to tap into a community of people engaging through social media platforms. And this is really important. From your perspective, your customers, you understand how important social media is to you as a business, but how do we cut through the noise to ensure that we can really engage? Because with more and more brands on there, more and more influencers that are sharing really strong content, we often get a little bit lost in all this. And as the stats kind of show, our attention spans are also dropping. It's a bit of a disappointing fact, but since 2000, we have dropped our attention span from what was around 12 seconds to around 8 seconds on average in 2019, which is worrying. But it just means that when we're trying to cut through the noise and trying to ensure that our customers can really engage, listen, and make these messages stick and make sure they're memorable, that we have to be very sort of clever about how we do that. So when it comes to 2019, what has changed? What are the trends that we are seeing and a lot of our clients are excited to be embracing for this year? And, a few of the things that we're seeing really do work. Going live. It's a phenomenon over the last 2 or 3 years where brands, businesses, are using the power of going live and really connecting with the consumers in real time to really show consumers all parts of your business, right? In a very simple way, for example, it could be, you could be a hairdresser based on the high street that just wants to show what's going on in the salon during the day. And people are craving that kind of content. And as much as it might feel a little bit mundane to you, people love it. They absolutely love it. We are digital consumers nowadays. We spend a lot of time consuming as much as we can because we have the time for it. Stories are a really big engaging way to connect with your customers. Facebook, Instagram, they all have the ability for you now to share, live video, but also sort of short, maybe 15 seconds or so long videos that expire after 24 hours. And these are really simple ways for you to interact because, consumers will click, they'll see what you're either promoting or showcasing or trying to inspire them or educate them on something. And then hopefully they will engage with your brand in an even better way. When it talks about engagement on these platforms themselves are evolving. They're finding much more engaging ways for brands or influencers or individuals to really get their own fan base and community to connect with them. So, you'll see on Instagram stories, you can ask questions. And we don't find enough brands actually do this, especially small brands. You worry for the most part that perhaps people won't engage with your question, but what have you got to lose, right? Asking the questions shows that you are interested in what they have to say. And people often will just tap or click or hopefully give you their feedback as well. So we're seeing, the truly immersive and engaging approaches that these platforms are offering to us. And as I mentioned, these platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they're evolving, they're changing. And you may or not be aware of the concept of an algorithm, which essentially is how most of these platforms operate. So Facebook, for example, they have a guy called Chris Cox last year, who's the head of Newsfeed, which I find a fantastic title or role within a business, who essentially, with the changes Facebook had to make last year, said that they're more about connecting, less about consuming. So you would have found perhaps 3 or 4 years ago where Facebook was, or your Facebook feed might have been populated with things from Lad Bible and other platforms that were just really pushing content down your throat. Nowadays, it's really all about connecting. They've pulled back a little bit to a more engaging, kind of the original sort of friendship-based approach that Facebook had. So as the algorithm changes for you as a brand or you as a business, you also need to be conscious of how you need to be changing the way you are sharing your content so that you can keep up to date with the way your content can be visible to everybody else. So a few of the major changes, especially through Facebook, that they had mentioned are really important are things like encouraging sharing more content. That would mean if you share something, essentially you're hoping that your fans, your consumers would share it too. So creating shareable content is incredibly important, because if you imagine from an algorithmic perspective, an algorithm essentially is, it's a software. Essentially what it does is it tries to understand how people are engaging and ensures that the platform itself can create a better experience for the users. So if you create content that is being shared, essentially Facebook would believe it's content that's worth showing more of. So it will hopefully showcase your content in a more visible fashion. Content that encourages comments is incredibly important, and even some comments that are weighted to encourage different kinds of reactions. Like, on Facebook, you can have just a typical like or love, or perhaps a sadder face. These sort of extra levels of interaction and engagement and emotions essentially help Facebook to understand how powerful your content really is. So try to build something that really gets people to connect. Encouraging replies, asking questions. You'll see some brands have changed their entire sort of social media content approach to be more conversational, to ensure they're asking more questions in the ways that some of their own consumers might be doing so, in the ways that perhaps some influencers might be doing so. Because if it feels natural within your feed, then it generally builds more conversation, and the algorithm considers you as a much more prominent piece of content to showcase, making more interactions more meaningful. And this is really super important, because we want to show that people are genuinely engaging and genuinely being able to either tell a story through the content that you are showing. And the result is a bit of a snowball effect, right? Good content, popular content will take off. And the more it takes off, the more you can hope to have a truly sort of engaging, kind of immersive experience for your own customers. And again, we're not talking about going viral with every post. Just because your content may only be seen or liked or engaged with 10 or 20 or so people doesn't mean that it's not worthy content. Of course, we're saturated with real viral posts, but it's about who is clicking. It's about how they're engaging and ensuring that you are building that fan base as you go. Start small. You have to grow somehow. But again, really important to remind yourself that these platforms are changing. We have to keep up. A very interesting fact that Facebook has a lot of people who are social media marketers are aware of is when you typically post organically, and that would mean posting without putting any payment behind it on some platforms like Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, the amount of reach that you can get, say for example through your Facebook company page, is a lot smaller than most of us realize. It's about 1 to 2% is the percentage of your fan base that will be reached through an organic post. So if you were a larger brand, you may have 1,000 or so fans. You might find is that, or 1,000 so likes on your page. You might find that you can only reach a very small percentage of those fans. So social media is becoming more pay to play. That means investing in paid advertising can truly make an impact on your content and how it gets engaged with or received by your consumers and your fans alike. And this is really important because A lot of people are a bit worried about spending money on this kind of advertising because they're not sure what they're going to get back. But these platforms really have been, built and evolved to help good content, paid for content, reach many, many different kinds of audiences that you may not originally have been able to reach with your organic posts. So when we say pay to play, we genuinely mean it. It's really important that you're able to invest in a little bit of advertising, and on platforms like Facebook and Twitter, it's very affordable to be able to reach numbers in the thousands. And what you really want to do is ensure that you can have a campaign around this as well. And as I mentioned, we do a lot of training specifically around paid advertising campaigns with social media to ensure that you really do get that return on investment that you can be expecting. So if you really want to expand your business, gain leads, reach new customers, you really do have to pay to play. And that's truly, truly important. But when you do invest in advertising, or you are choosing to run a social media campaign, even organically, you've got to set goals. And that cannot be more important when it comes to digital, because many of us in the room, large or small, some may have expertise in running large-scale campaigns with huge sort of return on investments, measuring those specifically. Some are just familiar with posting online. Some may even find that even challenging doing that regularly. Whatever it is that you're choosing to do through social, it's really important that you are setting yourself goals. So many clients we have come to us to say, we feel that we're doing so well, we are posting regularly, we are getting some engagement, but we ask them, how are you measuring this? Are you measuring this? Are you taking the time to truly measure this? And this is where we try to ensure that you understand that setting goals is incredibly important, especially if you want to understand what your return on investment is, because it will bring back, hopefully, some fruits of that labor. So there is what we call the conversion funnel. And these are the stages by which your consumers will probably go through to hopefully become a converted sale for you. There are many different stages and many different ways this is broken up, but the typical framework involves sort of three key areas, which is the attract stage, the engagement stage, and also the convert stage. And when we're talking about goals, you also need to understand whereabouts in this funnel are you truly trying to make that change. So you have to consider the content and the tactics at each of the stages, or if you are going specifically for one stage, what is the content that's going to work best, and how do we ensure that we can really measure that as well? And that's truly important, because for you as a business, you will have a typical goal, right? It may involve generating leads, right, which are prospective customers for your business. It may specifically involve sales, which means trying to drive that revenue and drive that bottom line up. It may also be thought leadership. That could be a really, really big goal for you. Perhaps even generating word of mouth. There's lots of different goals that you might have, but these will translate into social media goals and eventually will become metrics that you will be tracking. So if I'm looking to, for example, just generate leads, right? I might do that through raising awareness for my business as a starting point, or go straight into trying to drive engagement at the engagement stage, which may be specifically increasing Facebook likes or increasing the amount of engagement I get so that people will eventually fill in a form, right? So that's kind of an example of how we would try to turn that business goal into a particular social goal and get the metrics to measure that too. But really important is to understand that goals shouldn't just be broad; they need to be smart. And this is a framework that many people are familiar with, but not as many people truly do take it on board, unfortunately. But I think it's really, from our perspective, from the way we train and where we get people to actually get hands-on with it, set smart goals, right? Consider, the goal that you're setting, how specific is it, right? Because you want your people to do something. You want your customers or potential customers to do something. So it might be you want to use certain action words, like my goal is to increase something, to establish, to reduce customer service time, to create something. Whatever it might be, try to think specifically about what you'd like to see, because you can measure this. And that's really important. It's like saying, for example, you're playing a game. If you're playing a game online and it doesn't show you your score or indication of how you're progressing, you're not really going to be interested because you don't have a clue and there's no motivation on whether you're doing well or not. So the measuring side of it's so important. People often play that as sort of second string to actually going out there and posting regularly, when actually, if you're not measuring, you really won't know whether you're succeeding or not. So, the measuring side of it is sort of saying, I want to increase by something that is measurable. So I understand the metrics I'm going to use, but I know what the goal is going to look like so I can see how close I came to achieving it. Attainable, right? Stretch goals, as some call it, can be motivating, but if they're too far a stretch for you to reach, then you might switch off and say, actually, this isn't something that I'm ever going to make, and you feel less motivated to actually try and achieve it as well. So make sure they're attainable, ensure that they are realistic or even more relevant, something that is specific to a question that you're trying to ask. Ensure that they're time-bound, right? So are they timely? When can you complete this by, right? So think about the time frame that you have to set and ensure that you can define the milestones to help you get there. So I've given a couple of examples of some goals that you might specifically be looking to create broadly. And again, we want to go smart. It may be something like increase the number of customers at my hair salon, right? Really simple, but we don't know what we're measuring. We don't know exactly how timely it is or when we're going to try and reach that goal. A smart version would be to double the number of adult haircuts specific, which cost over £20 per week of the month of June in comparison to the month of May, right? So if I know that month on month I want to be increasing, let me just focus on a goal that I think I can try and improve and measure it. And look at my social media efforts to work out how I'm doing. And we'll talk a bit about the metrics that you can use as well to get you there. Another example, get more people to call the number of my website, right? Which is specifically more around generating 20% increased leads. And defined by the number of calls and inquiries I receive from my website for consultancy services. So I'm a consultant and I really need more people to be calling me for my work. Let me get a timed or timely period by which I want to measure how much has changed. I can invest in my social media paid advertising up to a certain point and then work out exactly how I'm going to get there. And social media is a really great platform for this because the metrics are there, right? The analytics are there to be able to work out exactly where you are going, how far you are to reaching your goals, and hopefully, where you can make improvements as well. So if you're in a cafe, for example, getting customers there, again, specific would be, I want customers who spend over a certain amount, buy a certain amount over a certain period, which really helps you get more specific with it as well. So let's look a bit at best practice. And this is going to be super interesting because there are lots of great tools and tips that are out there. If I kick off with time to post, this is a particularly interesting one because over the years, as social media has evolved, many people have thought, if you absolutely drive your post at a particular time of the day, you will, for the most part, drive all the visibility that you expect to get at the premium time. What's very interesting is that algorithms are changing to also make that approach a little less impactful. Because, for example, with Facebook, you can post very regularly, but what you'll see is on your Facebook feed is that you'll see posts that were posted from 3 or 4 days ago, which means the algorithm is now showing posts at different periods based on the level of engagement. So engagement is even much more important. But if you're looking to gather data, of course, if you are relevant, because you still, for example, on Twitter can see the latest posts, you might aim to gather the data of when your customers are really engaging. There are certain platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, that will also show you some of the more popular periods that people are actually engaging on their platforms, even sometimes by industry. So have a think about the metrics and work out when's right for your audience. If you know your audience well, you know that, for example, my audience might be female, between the ages of 35 to 50, and perhaps they are working moms, which means they may be taking kids to school at a particular time. Again, it can be very general, but the most important thing is that if you know when they may be using social media, you can choose to schedule posts at that time to ensure that you will be the latest thing that's on there, but be aware of the importance of the caliber of the content. Super, super important. How often to post is really important. Like, I think in terms of what some people regard as more of a spray gun, always on scattergun approach, it's very, very effective to be more pinpointed, more laser focused. Think about more targeted campaigns, not specifically less frequent, but if you can get much more targeted, you may hopefully be able to get a greater return on investment there. Measurement, again, goes without saying, it's incredibly important to match the metrics that you have to the goals that you want to set. So keep your campaigns, time bound, give yourself a particular period where you want to track against. And really important, embrace a test and learn mindset, right? That means that you should be really testing everything that you do and be happy to learn and improve on this as we go. It's unlikely, very unlikely you're going to get this perfect the first time. So what you want to do is schedule your campaign times, check what isn't working, and optimize your campaigns. Where can you make improvements on this? Now, we talked a lot about metrics, and I think if we break down by the different sort of areas of the funnel or segments of the funnel, there are different metrics that can really show you, how your engagement and what you should be measuring. So from the really initial point of view, so if you're just looking to attract customers, maybe your goal is around just raising awareness. Reach is one of the biggest metrics that you should be aiming for. And that might be based on the number of impressions, which means how often are your tweets or posts or Facebook being shown to viewers. And that's really important, even when it comes to YouTube, right? How often are you being shown? And then, what is the share of voice you have against other companies that are out there? If you're looking to just generate sales, that's the bottom line. Are people purchasing? Are they signing up to the mailing list, right? Get the metrics right first, so you know how to measure, what you're hopefully trying to generate for your business. And again, cannot mention it anymore. Have the test and learn mentality. Measure, adjust. Test it, learn it, iterate. It's really important that as digital changes, as consumers, we change the way we our social media engagement behaviors will change over time. Algorithms will change over time. You also need to be testing and not feeling like the approach that you have now is foolproof and also future-proof, right? To keep thinking, how can we improve the way our campaigns are run so that they can consistently be updated and consistently match the way that our consumers are perhaps changing and engaging on new platforms too. So, a bit of a recap today. In typical Upskill fashion, what we love to do is ensure that we give you a bit of a recap, ensure that you've had a chance to kind of, get under the skin of some of these topic areas. First thing to remind yourself is obviously think about engaging with your customers. Who are they? Understand that their attention spans are genuinely decreasing over time, which means that we have a very sort of saturated market, but we have to cut through the noise with a sort of pinpointed and very content heavy approach. Consider setting your goals. What are the right goals that are right for you? Where do they sit in the funnel? Okay, consider the funnel so you know whereabouts you want to convert. Are they based around thought leadership? Are you looking to just raise awareness? Are you looking to drive leads? If so, what are the social goals that would lead to that? If it's leads, it might be filling out a particular form, driving them to your webpage. If it's thought leadership, it might be getting that share of voice, maybe getting that engagement, maybe getting things like guest post requests, because people know that you perhaps have some content that is worth sharing with their own audience. And also consider optimizing your campaign. Test, measure, learn. Get a better understanding of where you are succeeding and where perhaps your campaigns aren't working as well. So we also have a small bit of time for Q&A. It's hopefully this has been a useful session for you. We'd like to ensure that you have taken away some really interesting facts and top tips. When we run our sort of hands-on face-to-face sessions, we always get you working on particular practical tips, through our webinars. We want to ensure that you have the opportunity to get those questions answered that you might have. So just looking at the questions now, we have a couple that have come through. One is, how can I better manage my social media? I'm a small business with very few resources. Very good question. To give you a very simple answer, you amongst many. When you have limited time, and again, time is a very important resource from a small business perspective. Some of the areas that, some of the tools that can be really useful for you are things such as Hootsuite or Sprout Social, where you can actually schedule posts. And a lot of small businesses feel like they are often their time is very limited and they don't have the ability to constantly be posting reactively even to a lot of people that are engaging with them on social media platforms. So what I always say, use platforms like Hootsuite. They have a free version where you can actually post in advance, perhaps of a product launch, perhaps of a new blog post that you're in the middle of writing, that engage for you whilst you're not consistently on your social platforms. And we all know that when you're balancing many different platforms, it feels like you're spinning multiple plates. And I think it's really important that you know which ones to spin well, and don't try to invest too much time in the ones that you don't feel comfortable you have the time to invest in, or if, for example, you know that your customers aren't engaging as well around that particular topic on that platform, that you can hopefully drive your time best invested in other platforms that are right for you. So in terms of any other questions you might have, please feel free to get in touch with us today. We are, as I mentioned, a training agency that delivers a lot of training to small businesses, large businesses around lots of topical areas, from GDPR to social media, paid engagement to analytics, and even how to run a really succinct and full digital marketing campaign. So it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we really hope that you got some really useful tips out of this. Please get in touch if you have any other questions for us. This is one of many sessions that we do in our series of free webinars, and we really look forward to engaging with you on the next one. So thanks very much.